Hi everybody, welcome to class. My name's Todd. I'm glad you're here. We're going to learn some good stuff in this lecture. We're going to go over some of these things here. I'm just going to scroll up. You can pause the video right now if you want and read that. It's a little bit of a preview. But we're going to go over these things here. We're going to learn about how tech is a tool. And then we're also going to go through chapter 1's slides for this chapter. And so we'll learn some of the concepts there. And we're also going to learn about the difference between a search engine like Google and artificial intelligence like ChatGPT. And this in particular will be super helpful to you. ChatGPT is incredibly powerful, and I'm going to show you a little bit about using it effectively. And so I guess first thing we'll do is do the difference between a search engine and ChatGPT, and then we'll also look at the myth of Prometheus, because the myth of Prometheus is a good thing to talk about as we're getting started learning about technology and using technology effectively, and making sure that we are using it. We're using technology and technology is not using us. And so building our conscious awareness about technology and some of the ways that it could be using us, and some of the ways we could use it unskillfully so that we could be safer with technology. So with a search engine like Google, you enter I'm going to kind of teach you the difference between using a search engine and using artificial intelligence. But with search engines, you enter really succinct phrases like best restaurants, right? Best restaurants in Oahu, or just best restaurants near me, right? And that's going to give you a list of restaurants. That's how you use a search engine. And search engines are great for that. Like we have ratings here. You can click on more places. You could come in here and you could filter it by price. You could filter it by if it's open. You could say, hey, I only want to see things that are 4.5 stars or above. You could zoom in to different areas and just see restaurants in certain areas, so you could get a closer look at restaurants in certain areas. Like that's really useful with a search engine. We could also do Prometheus, and we could just enter Prometheus God, right? Like I'm going to search that, go back to Google, searching the map for that, but I'll come in here and I'll search that once more here at Google. And then I get results about Prometheus, the Greek god. So here's the Wikipedia entry, and here's some videos, here's some more websites, here are some images, and then here is some more information down here, some more resources. That's what a search engine does. It gives you results, and then you have to look through those results to find your meaning, right? To find kind of like, what does this mean for you? You have to read through these different results. Artificial intelligence has already read through all of this material for you. And when you ask it a question, so if you go to some artificial intelligence service like ChatGPT and you ask it a question, it's going to synthesize all of the information that's out there about this topic, and it's going to deliver a result. It's going to deliver its understanding of this topic to you. And not only that, with a search engine, you ask it one question. If you don't get your question answered the first time you ask that question, you just have to ask another question, right? And it's a totally different, kind of search, right? And you get a whole different results, and then you have to go through those results. With artificial intelligence, as opposed to a search engine, you could have a conversation with it. And not only that, you're not asking it short, succinct phrases, but with artificial intelligence, you speak to it the way you'd normally speak to a friend. So AI, artificial intelligence, is like talking with a really smart friend, like the smartest friend you've ever known. And so you can see here, like at the search engine, I just put Prometheus God, and then I get here some information about, the god, the Greek god Prometheus. But here at AI, I say, is the story of Prometheus the story of a Greek god or a Roman god or something else? Please also tell me the story of Prometheus. Right? And so here it tailors its response exactly to the information I'm wanting, right? It's looked through all of the information about Prometheus that's out there on the web, and it's tailoring this response it gives to me specifically to the questions I'm asking. And so that's known as generative AI. It's generative because it's generating new content. It's generating fresh content based upon all of the information out there on the web about Prometheus. It's generating this response. Artificial intelligence is generating this response. So it's called generative AI, or Gen AI, Gen AI, generative AI. It generates responses, right? And so if you want to read about the myth of Prometheus, which I really recommend you do because we're going to talk about it in a second, you can pause the video right here and you could read that through the 3rd bullet point. And now you could read the 4th bullet point and on. And also you could see that you have a conversation with artificial intelligence, right? I asked it one question and then I could ask it a follow-up question. What are the 5 most popular myths in Greek mythology, right? And it gives me that information. And then based upon the conversation we've been having, I could say, which story would you recommend for sharing with a computer class, right? And so it understands the context of the conversation we've already been having. It understands that we've already talked about Prometheus. It understands that we talked about the 5 most popular myths in Greek mythology, right? And now it's like when I just say randomly, which story would you recommend for sharing with a computer class? Like if I enter this over here at Google, you know, it knows nothing about, this is a whole new search. It knows nothing about Prometheus, right? Like that was the previous search. There's no connection between the previous search and this search. And so they're both independent searches. But here at ChatGPT, the artificial intelligence, here at the artificial intelligence, in the context of the conversation we've already been having, it understands we're talking about Greek mythology, the top 5 Greek mythology myths, and the myth of Prometheus. And when I ask it this question, it says, hey, Prometheus is really the best story to share with a computer class. And here are the reasons why. So you could go ahead and, right, you could read through this. You could pause the video and you could read through this too. Another really cool thing about artificial intelligence is that you could come in here and you can attach files. You could upload files, PDFs, Word documents, text documents, Excel spreadsheets, images, right? You could upload all kinds of files and you could say, can you please explain this to me? So you could take your cell phone and you could take a picture of something in your textbook and you could upload that image here and you could say, this is confusing me. Can you please explain this to me? And then give me a couple of examples. And you could also say, can you please explain this more in a simpler fashion? And so it's super powerful. Now there's different versions of artificial intelligence. So ChatGPT 4.0 right here is the newest version. Apparently there's a new version coming out after this very soon. So when you come in here, you can look to see what are the newest versions. And then there are older versions. So the free version of ChatGPT, and you could get to ChatGPT by going to this URL right here, but the free version of ChatGPT will use the oldest version. And the responses from the oldest version are not as good. And sometimes they're just downright inaccurate. But with the newer versions, they are much better. So you could upload like an essay that you wrote, and you could say, check this for spelling and grammar. You could say, how would you improve the first paragraph, right? You could say, how would you, can you improve this entire paper? And you could look at what you wrote. You could look at the suggestions it's made for improvement, and you could integrate the two to make your paper even better. And you can learn from it, right? To see like how did it make your paper better? So you can learn what good writing looks like. So ChatGPT is incredible, and it's kind of like the best tutor you ever had, and the smartest friend that you ever knew. And you could sit here and ask it questions about anything all the time. And if it's too complicated for you, the response, you could say, please make that simpler. Please explain that to me like, I'm in 8th grade or whatever it is. Please give me some examples where I could practice this. So it does everything from chemistry to math to English to Greek mythology, like every subject, it does everything. So it's incredible, it's super powerful, it's super useful. You could have it write a resume for you and improve your resume. You could have it write a cover letter for you when you're applying for a job. Super useful tool, one of the most powerful tools that's out there, and it's essential for you to know about it as a student and as an individual who wants to succeed in life. It's incredibly powerful. All right, so that's the difference between search engines and artificial intelligence, sometimes referred to as generative AI, generative artificial intelligence. And that's the first thing that I want you to learn today in this lecture. Second thing I want you to learn is that tech is a tool. We've talked about this a little bit, but tech is a tool. And the really important question for you to ask yourself is, are you using it or is it using you? And so just to illustrate what I mean by that, right? This tool here can be used for beneficial purposes. It could allow you to communicate with your friends. It could allow you to text and call. You can listen to music. You can watch videos. You could do social media. You could run a business. You could be an influencer. And you could find like the best restaurants, and you could find directions to get places. Totally incredibly beneficial. At the same time, it could really be used for a lot of harm, and it could be very detrimental. So if you do all of those things, texting, looking up songs, taking photos and videos while you're driving, if you do those things while you're driving, this phone could be incredibly detrimental to you and to others. You could kill others, and you could kill yourself if you use this phone while you're driving. So statistics show that driving while using your phone is relatively equivalent to driving drunk, and maybe even worse. So it's really something you don't want to do. And just to illustrate that, there's a video here. The last text, AT&T, don't text while driving. Watch the 10-minute, 44-second version. But this young man right here received significant brain damage because of texting while driving. And there are people who have died. So watching this video will really reinforce for you. I strongly recommend you watch this video. And send it to the people you love and care about, because it'll really reinforce for you how important it is just not to use your phone while you're driving. Like, resist the urge. And I know how strong that urge is. It's like, I'm just going to look down and text for a second. But when you do that, man, all it takes is a second or two, and you could hit somebody, or you could go off the road and hit something, and you could get brain damage and never function the same, or you could kill yourself. Horrible things can happen. So this is to illustrate that technology is a tool. And tools can be used for beneficial purposes, and they can be used for detrimental purposes. And so the myth of Prometheus is a Greek myth which illustrates this. So the Greek god Prometheus stole fire. He stole fire from the other gods, and he gave it to the humans. And the other gods were really upset with Prometheus, and they sentenced him to, I don't know how long, maybe eternity, where he was chained to a rock, and every day a big bird would come and eat out his guts, and then he'd heal overnight, and the next day the bird would come back and eat out his guts again. That was his punishment. And he was given that punishment because he gave fire to humans. And the other Greek gods thought humans are not ready for this powerful of a tool, right? Because fire can be used for many beneficial purposes. It could cook your food, it could give you light, it could keep you warm. But fire can also be used for many detrimental purposes. It could burn you. It could, burn things down. It can be used for destruction and warfare. And so the other Greek gods thought humans aren't really ready for a tool that is that powerful. And really, that myth can be also applied to technology. We could really ask ourselves, are humans really ready for a tool which is this powerful, which is technology? And for some humans, the answer has been fatally no. Right? Like, they died because they were using this while they were driving. And also for all of humanity, there have been many moments where we've almost eliminated ourselves as a species because of technology. And so this was a picture I took at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa, Canada. And a training tape was left in a computer. And because of that, for several minutes, the North American defense people, NORAD, thought that the Soviet Union had launched a massive nuclear attack. And so you could picture what that's like. The United States almost launched a counterattack, and then they realized at the last moment that, whoa, right? It wasn't a Russian attack on us. It was actually a training tape that was left in a computer, but humanity almost got annihilated because a training tape was left in a computer. That's totally absurd. Sounds like a Kurt Vonnegut novel. So technology could be used for beneficial purposes, but it could also be really detrimental. And are we skilled enough to have such a powerful tool? That's the question, right? This gentleman here is a Russian officer in the Russian military. And likewise, their computers showed at a different point in time that we had launched nuclear missiles against Russia. And he realized it was a computer error and stopped the chain of command from launching back against us. And then he didn't follow the protocols in the Russian military, so he was kicked out, lost his job, and became somewhat destitute. But when Russia then kind of dissolved, the Soviet Union dissolved, he was given like a medal for saving humanity. So in another completely separate instance, humanity almost got annihilated because of computer error. And so here's what, there's like only 4 or 5 five-star generals that have ever existed. Omar Bradley was one of them, but this is what Omar Bradley had to say about technology and what we've been able to achieve. So you can pause the video and you can take a look at that. So those are really 2 important takeaways. The first one is the difference between a search engine and artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. And the second one is this here, where tech is a tool, and do we use it or does it use us? So those are 2 important takeaways. The third thing I want to teach you about is how to succeed as a student in college. So I'm going to go here to YouTube, and I'm going to search for Angela Duckworth. Angela Duckworth. She has a TED Talk on grit. So the number 1 factor that correlates with student success is grit. This is 6 minutes long. You should go watch it, because if you just have persistence with school and you don't quit, that's the number 1 factor. If you have grit, you don't quit. You have grit, you don't quit. That's the number 1 factor that correlates with student success. So it's really important to know, right? It doesn't matter what side of the tracks you come from. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are or not. It doesn't matter whether your parents went to school, went to university or college or not. The number 1 thing that matters about determining your success in school is whether or not you just apply yourself, you have persistence, and you have grit, and you don't quit. And just to illustrate that, my family on my dad's side, we were dirt poor farmers 2 generations back. So my grandpa, and many generations back, we homesteaded a farm in Canada, north of Winnipeg. Our family did. And so that farm was just way out in the boondocks. It had no running water, no electricity, no indoor plumbing, no gas. If you wanted meat, you killed something. If you wanted heat, you burned wood. If you wanted water, you went to the creek or you melted snow. If you wanted to use the restroom, there was an outhouse outside, or in winter, a bucket in the basement. Like, it was really rustic living. And my dad was the last kid to leave the farm. He left his dad, my grandpa, on the farm. And my dad went into the city to finish his senior year of high school. And then he wanted to go to university, but he failed the math entrance exam in Canada to go to university. So thinking outside the box, having persistence, having grit, my dad asked himself, well, is there a math entrance exam in America? And he ended up going to university in America, where he's able to get into a university. And he kept going to university. He didn't quit. He got his bachelor's degree, and he just kept going. And he got his master's, and he just kept going. And then he got his doctorate in sociology. And to this day, he's not good at math. And he only got through math because my mom, who he was dating at the time, tutored him in math. So the basic math classes he had to take, the only reason he got through them is because he got tutoring. But he didn't quit. He had grit. He had persistence. And because of that, our family went from being dirt poor farmers, just 2 generations back. In 1 generation, my dad went from that to being a college university professor. And then me growing up under him, I saw that pathway to this job, and that's how I ended up here. But that's just to illustrate the power of persistence and having grit, and that's the number 1 factor that correlates with student success. So make sure you check out this video, and then also check out this course right here. It's 3 hours long, and it'll teach you the skills you need for college success. It's free, and you get there by going to this URL right there. So you learned 3 really important things so far. You learned about search engines and also generative AI, ChatGPT, and how powerful ChatGPT can be to help you learn new material and to be like a tutor and the smartest friend you ever had. You've also learned about tech being a tool, and do you use it or does it use you, and how that's related to the myth of Prometheus, the Greek god, the Greek myth of Prometheus. And then you've also learned what it takes to succeed as a college university student, which is also what it takes to succeed in life, is you just have persistence and you just have grit. So those are 3 really important things for you to learn in this first lecture. The next thing I want to share with you is that there are a lot of people on campus who are here to help you. You want to make sure you have an academic counselor. So Lori Swain, Fresno City College is a great academic counselor. If you don't have one yet, you could go here and you could use Starfish to schedule an appointment with her, or here is her email. So if you don't have an academic counselor yet, she's fantastic. Just send her an email and she will schedule an appointment with you and help you get your student education plan figured out so that you don't waste any time when you're taking classes and figuring out your classes, but instead you just do the work you need to do to get to where you want to be, get your bachelor's degree, get your master's, get your doctorate. Degrees open doors, degrees get dollars, and you want to get that degree. So you want to make sure you have an academic counselor, and you also want to make sure that you have a student education plan. Lori will help you put that together so you could get to where you want to go as quickly as possible, because we're here to help you succeed. We want to see you succeed, which is why I'm sharing this information. There's a lot of other great resources on campus which you could take advantage of, and they will help you. So there's the RAM Pantry, and so if you just search for like RAM Pantry, Fresno City College, it's a grocery store on campus where everything is free, and here are the hours, so you can check that out. And so we do this, and you don't have to be like, you know, financially in need to use it at all. And if it saves you $100-200 a week on groceries, that's money you could spend to hire a babysitter or to hire a gardener so you could spend more time on your studies. It's supported by the community to help students succeed. So make sure you check out this free grocery store on campus. And then we also have a lot of other resources. There's like financial aid counselors to help you figure out how you could get grants to help and financial aid to help you pay for school. And there's the health services where you could see a nurse anytime that you need to see a nurse for any health related reasons, including family planning, aka birth control, or, you know, COVID testing, or anything that might be going on with your health. It's all paid for as part of your fees to go to Fresno City College. They will also give you fentanyl test strips. So if you know anybody, including maybe yourself, who's purchasing drugs on the street, which you should not be doing because they can kill you, you could get fentanyl test strips to help keep your loved ones or whoever might be doing that more safe. You could also get Narcan, which will save people who have had a fentanyl overdose, gives them 20 or 30 more minutes of life, so you could get them to the hospital. And that's Narcan, and they will give that to you free at the nurse's office. And you have to watch like a 15-minute training video so you know how to identify the situations in which you might administer that. But there's like so many great resources and so many people here who are working to help you succeed. You put in the effort and you reach out to people. There's the Career Center to help you figure out the career you want to choose and help you get work. So it's all really great. But in choosing your career, I'd really recommend that you also ask questions of ChatGPT. And there's many wonderful possibilities out there, things you haven't even thought of, things I didn't think of when I was young. I had a friend who became the fire chief of Ventura County and made like 500 grand a year, like, you know, amazingly. He had a master's degree and he was a CPA, and then he became a firefighter because he enjoyed that more. And because of his academic training and his understanding of budgeting and spreadsheets and being a CPA, certified public accountant, he moved up really quickly and eventually became the fire chief. And it's incredibly great salary. So all kinds of wonderful opportunities out there. You just have to, you know, have persistence and keep going to school, make it your job, and you could achieve those. We're gonna quickly go through, so these are just my slides of things I like to talk about in the first week, you know, and then, yeah, interesting stuff. There's a whole lot of them, so sometimes I reference those. But here, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna just briefly go through chapter 1 of the textbook. And so chapter 1 of the textbook, you know, the main thing I really want here is for you to just get a high-level overview of stuff. I'm not a stickler for you have to memorize this vocabulary or these terms. I will point out to you when there's something that's really practical and applicable that's going to benefit your life that you really need to know about, including just a general understanding of certain tech computer concepts. But there's a lot of stuff which is just like, just have a cursory understanding of it, which is good. But I believe in just kind of going through every chapter of the textbook so that you have some idea of what's being covered in each chapter, because you're going to be doing work around this stuff, taking a quiz and things like that. So here are the main learning objectives for chapter 1. You can pause the video and you can read that. Here are the main learning objectives continued. So you can pause the video and you can read that. Those are the main things that are covered in chapter 1. And then it talks about different tools that are out there, just like what does technology look like in a global society. So social networking tools to enable groups to connect and exchange ideas, like social media sites, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, right? And crisis mapping tools, so you could see how, if there's a crisis occurring like COVID-19, how quickly is it spreading? How do we stop it? Like technology is used for all of that. So really what this is showing us is that we really live in a society which is deeply married to technology, and when technology influences all aspects of our lives. Healthcare, right? The environment, all, we're using technology and all that. The digital divide refers to those who have access to technology and those who do not, the gap that exists between people who have internet access and access to computers, right? And the more we get people to have access to technology, the more we'll be able to access cognitive surplus, so cognition, surplus extra, right? Like having people all around the world being able to learn and grow and become more skillful and solve different problems for all of humanity, right? So as we get people to have more access to technology, that really empowers them to learn and grow and contribute to the team, which is humanity. Then it talks a little bit about, here we got cognitive surplus and Web 2.0 versus Web 1.0. And I did a little bit of a thing here about like Web 2.0 versus Web 1.0. So here you could pause the video and you could read about those differences. And then also here's some information on the digital divide. So tell me about the digital divide. There's that part, pause the video, and then I'll scroll down a little bit more. And then there's that part, you can pause the video, and then I'll scroll down a little bit more, and there's a little bit more. And then I say, can you please explain that more succinctly and simply? And it summarized it more succinctly. And I said, can you please give that to me in a paragraph that is 5 sentences or less? And it did that right here. So you can see I'm having a conversation with it and asking it to condense the information. So it's pretty amazing and powerful technology. And then here's a little bit about CRISPR and protein folding, which is pretty interesting, editing genes and DNA. So there's this gal, Kathy Woods, and Kathy Woods is a famous investor, and and she has 5 trends, and the 5 most important technology trends or innovations, right, for humanity today are the fact that we have AI, artificial intelligence, and then we also have robotics, like that's really going to change humanity. And we have energy storage, so we have batteries which can store energy more effectively, and so we have all these battery-driven things, battery-driven cars, and battery-driven planes coming. And then we have blockchain or cryptocurrency, and then we also have DNA sequencing and editing. So editing our genes, and so CRISPR is technology that edits genes, and so this is actually like protein folding and crowdsourcing, accessing surplus cognitive surplus. But here's the information on CRISPR, so you can pause the video and read that. And there's some really great videos on YouTube from Netflix to see how this will start to impact humanity. And so one of them is Netflix AI War, whatever it's called. Here we go. It is right here, Unknown Killer Robots. This is great. Really recommend checking this out. And it talks about, how technology is and robots and artificial intelligence is shaping war, and that's kind of wild. And then there's also Netflix social media, and that one is called Social Dilemma right here, and this is great also. And it really talks about how we have the current divisiveness, how technology has been engineered to be addictive, and how capitalism exists to make you feel inadequate and deficient and discontent. Capitalism exists to make you feel inadequate, deficient, and discontent. Because if you're content, you're not a good consumer, right? It's like, no, thank you. I don't need any more stuff. I'm content. But if you feel inadequate, if you feel like you don't have enough, if you feel like you need to get more, now you're a good consumer. And that's good for capitalism. So you have these massive forces with the best psychologists hired in the world to make you want to buy more stuff and get more stuff and be discontent and feel insufficient and deficient and inadequate. And then social media is also engineered that way, right? To make you want to use it more and more, to make it addictive. And the things which are addictive for us are things which are sensational, right? Like the really outlandish or the real outlier things, which is like, oh my gosh, this person's really passionate and they're really, fired up about this. Or, oh my gosh, listen to what happened. This politician or that politician, they did this or they did that. And so we get onto social media and it starts showing us stuff we're interested in, and then starts showing us stuff which is more and more intense and sensational. And the reason the human mind is geared to be drawn towards those things is because we all have something built into us called the negativity bias. And so the negativity bias right here, so here's the negativity bias, right? Please tell me about the negativity bias. You could read this right here, and then you could also read it right here. But the negativity bias is the human mind is much more predisposed to negative information and pay attention to that as opposed to positive. And just to illustrate this, if you receive 200 positive comments, like on a post you make, and then there's like one negative comment, that negative comment is going to hit you just as hard, if not harder, than all of those positive 200. That's the negativity bias. And we came by the negativity bias honestly, right? Like it's part of our evolution. So our ancestors and who we are, the reason we've survived, part of the reason we've survived as a species, is we've looked for what is wrong and what could go wrong, right? Like, do we have enough wood for winter? Is this shelter going to be safe, right? Do we have water, access to water? Is there going to be a tiger in that cave, right? We look for what is wrong and what could go wrong. Do we have enough food for winter? Do we have enough wood, right? We're looking for things that are wrong, as opposed to like, it'll be fine. There's no tiger in that cave. Like those people who are too chill, they got eaten. They died. They got removed from the gene pool. And those of our ancestors that survived were those who were hypervigilant, those who were looking for what was wrong and what could go wrong. That's the negativity bias. This is deeply embedded into us as humans, so much so that for the first 150 years of the field of psychology, it was all pathologically focused. It was focused upon what was wrong. That's what psychology was, until only in the 1990s, Martin Seligman started positive psychology, the field of positive psychology, where you looked at like things that are going right and things that are working well. And so that's how deeply the negativity bias is embedded in the human mind. And then there's also this principle in psychology called the illusory truth effect. And so you could pause the video and you could read about that. But if you're exposed to something enough, and that could only be 3 to 5 times, you start to believe it's true, regardless of whether or not it's true. You could even know it's not true, and if you get exposed to it enough times, like 7 to 10 times, you start to believe it's true, even though you know it's not true. If you see like 7 to 10 posts of something that's really compelling. Now, that in social media has allowed, the algorithms in social media websites have been designed to make you want to use their services, right? And the thing that makes you want to use their services is looking at the stuff that's wrong and that's really sensational. And then the more you look at it, the more you believe it. And so that's what's led to a lot of this divisiveness. And when you know that, you could kind of take a step back and you could say, all right, I'm falling into the negativity bias and the illusory truth effect. I'm being exposed to this stuff over and over. That's why I'm believing it's true. Let me talk to some people on the other side. Let me see what they have to say about it. Let me expose myself to the material on the other side for a week, right? Every day, a couple of times a day, I'll look at the stuff from that other side of the fence. And you know what will happen by the end of the week? I've done this myself. You start to feel sympathy towards that side. You start to resonate with stuff on that side. And that's a really interesting experiment to see how malleable the human mind is. And how if you just consciously choose to engage in that malleability, to exposing the mind to something over and over, and seeing how the mind starts to believe it's true, you could start to shape the mind. And when you realize that, you could then start to choose what you want to expose the mind to, so that you could shape the mind in the way that you want it to be shaped. Profound stuff. Super interesting. And so all of that is talking about metaphysics and ontology in the field of philosophy. So one of my roles as a teacher is to demystify complex topics and to make things seem really approachable, and to help you realize that college and university, they don't have to be scary places, nor do these concepts have to be scary. Anybody can learn this stuff. And a lot of people will make it seem complex because they're on some ego trip and they want to be seen as really smart or powerful or in a position that is sort of exclusive. They've gained access to this difficult, challenging material, but a lot of that really only shows their level of egocentrism and their lack of personal growth, and how they haven't really stretched themselves to make this material more available and accessible to everybody, and to show people that it's not all that complicated, right? So it's kind of funny the way humans act. But metaphysics is the study in philosophy of first principles. So define metaphysics for me, and also ontology. And so metaphysics is a study of first principles like nature, being, life, like how does it exist? How do we exist? And ontology is a subfield of metaphysics which deals with the nature of being. And so actually I like the definitions here, so sometimes a search engine is more useful than ChatGPT. The branch of philosophy that deals with first principles of things, including abstract concepts such as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space, right? Like, so it's just philosophy kind of thinking about, like, what's it mean to be here? What's it mean to actually know something, right? How does the mind work, right? What are cause and effects of things? What is identity? The identity that we have. Where do we get our identities? How are time and space? How does that work? And then ontology is the branch of metaphysics that deals with the nature of being. And so, interestingly, also ontology has a second meaning, which is the relationship between concepts. So here's like an ontological structure with the relationship between different concepts. You could see the lines. Or here's another ontological structure showing how concepts are related. Here's another ontological structure showing how concepts are related. So, those are really big words. And if you know them, it's kind of fun to be like, oh, we're talking about metaphysics. Or, you know what, we were talking about ontology, the nature of being. And so that's what we were just doing when we were talking about the mind. So 2 additional great videos for you to watch there. All right, connecting through business, crowdfunding sites, GoFundMe, crowdsourcing stuff, Kickstarter. Marketing, right? Technologies in marketing, influencers and crowdsourcing stuff. And the sharing economy, technologies there. We could do Uber or Lyft, or we could rent a scooter or a bike. And so that's like, they call that the sharing economy. So instead of me owning my own bike, I just rent the bike when I need it. And then, computer literacy. Literacy is, if you're literate, you know how to read. So literacy, I don't know how to define literacy, the ability to read and write. So computer literacy is the ability to use computers. That's what that phrase means. So you really want to know how to use computers in our world. And this is, in some ways, one of the most important classes you could ever take, because you're going to gain some skills using computers. So computer literacy just means that you know how to read and write computer stuff. You know how to use computers. And computer literacy can include all those things. You can pause the video and read through that list, plus everything else related to computers. And then we talked about AI already, and artificial intelligence is just creating intelligence, which is artificial. It's sort of a self-reflective definition. And, and basically what artificial intelligence wants to do is to create us, but, better. And so how do we make machines which are more powerful and effective than humans at thinking, at listening, at talking, at perceiving, at making decisions? And that's pretty extraordinary for us to be able to create tools which can really extend our capabilities in these ways. Like AI can help us find solutions that we didn't even know existed, and the power of AI is incredible. So here are some aspects, a little bit of history of AI, right? Natural language processing means it NLP means it could process language, it could understand speech, it could perceive things, sight, sound, touch, maybe taste, right? Smell. It could represent knowledge, understand relationships between knowledge, the ontology of different kind of ideas. It could plan, it could solve problems, it could learn. And major developments contributing to AI systems, there used to be systems called expert systems, and that was really about capturing the expertise of somebody and making that like in a database where you could access that expertise. And then there was neural networks, artificial neural networks. So you have all these neurons in your brain and they're all connected. So they created machines where the CPUs were all connected, and that helped emulate the way the human brain works. And then advances in machine learning, they have large language models, LLMs now. And LLMs are like ChatGPT, and who really cares about all this stuff, right? Like if you go into AI and you make that your field of focus, you'll learn about the differences between these things, but you don't need to know this stuff. It's just kind of nice to know that there's been some advances and there's different stages. And so these are some of the different stages it went through. You don't need to memorize it. Like retail has definitely been influenced by technology, in banking and transportation and autopilot, right? Automatic driving and automatic planes, and robots and embodied agents. There's Tesla's coming out with a robot, Tesla robot folding clothes. Is a fun video to watch, just to watch this robot here folding clothes. It's pretty amazing, right? And it looks like there's a human there, but it's not. It's a robot, and they can fold clothes. So that should change how you do laundry. And then education is, right, being influenced by technology. I mean, look at how we're doing this class here. You're watching this video. And law enforcement is uses technology. Medicine uses technology, like everything. Psychology, right? Like, you know, you could get a therapist, you know, like AI therapist, you know, probably some videos. AI-powered mental health chatbots developed as therapy support tool. Like that would be great to watch. And there's also like AI friends. And so you could find friends, including AI girlfriends or AI boyfriends. And it goes even further than that, and I'll leave it at that. And then we have ethics related to computers. So we'll talk about ethics further into the course, but here's just a little bit of a preview of that. You can pause the video and you could read that. But obviously you want to develop within yourself some moral code by which you make decisions and take actions. And you could either have that moral code given to you by the various cultures in which you've been raised. So your microculture of your family and the macroculture of the larger culture in which you were raised. And that's one way to get a moral code. But I think that's a little bit of one stage of moral development, is you just sort of do what you've been told to do. But a higher stage of moral development is when you define your own moral code. And you come up with reasons for why you make certain decisions and take certain actions, like fundamental first principles for who you are and how you're going to treat people and why you're going to treat people that way, right? You develop your own moral code. And so the basis of that moral code is total personal self-interest. And you look to see, is it in your own best interest to treat other people a certain way, right? Or should you take advantage of them? And what's going to serve you better throughout your entire life? And so just to give you a little bit of a insight into this, is there's a TED Talk, Harvard study on happiness, and the number one thing that you could do the number one thing that determines the quality of your life is the quality of your relationships. So this is a really great talk right here. It's super worth your time. I really highly recommend you watch it. But the quality of your relationships will determine the quality of your life. And when you realize that, to have relationships, you got to be trustworthy. And you have to treat people well. You can't take advantage of them. Otherwise, you're going to be by yourself. And so when you understand that the quality of my life depends upon me having quality relationships, then that really starts to lay the bedrock for developing your own moral code, because then you want to treat people well. And you want to treat them well because you understand that to really succeed in life, financially and interpersonally and emotionally, Like, you need relationships with people. And to do that, you got to treat people well. And so that's a fundamental, completely selfish, like self-oriented reason for being kind to other people and treating other people well, is it's going to be in your own best interest. Because then you'll have relationships, you'll have quality relationships, and those quality relationships will determine the quality of your life. And that's been proven true in my own life, right? Despite myself. You know, like, I would have quit people a long time ago if I could have. Because when I was younger, I had an experience, traumatic experience, which left me with PTSD and depression and anxiety and a great fear of people. And I would have just stayed away from people for the rest of my life if I could have. But the draw to have connection with other people and to have relationships was too strong. And it pulled me back. It pulled me back out of hard times into good times, back into good times. And so that's a great TED Talk to watch. But developing your own moral code, if you start to think about it, like, if you truly understand that the quality of your life is going to be determined by the quality of your relationships, you build your moral code up from that, because you realize you got to treat other people well. Like, instead of leaving a shopping cart right in a parking stall at the grocery store where somebody else is going to have to get out and move it, you push it in so you're considerate to other people, right? If the cashier mischarges you for something, you let her know, or you let him know, you know, like, oh, you know, you forgot to charge me for that. Let me pay you for it, because I want to treat people well. So that's how you develop your moral code. All right, we're going to talk about intellectual property and privacy further in the course, but there's a little bit of a preview on that. And then, you know, ethical computing, social justice, liability, censorship. You could read those things, and you could also read those things. All right, that's a little bit of welcome to the class. I don't know how long that took us. 47 minutes. It is 11:30 at night for me. I hope you enjoyed that. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a great day.